source of pleasure because his devotional service gives him all the pleasure, all the happiness that he could want and more. So that's the mood of the devotee and how he utilizes his time. The next section is about perseverance. When a person is undisturbed, even in the presence of various causes of disturbance, he is called reserved and perseverant. An example of this perseverance and reservation is found in the behavior of King Parikshit, as described in the first canto, 19th chapter, verse 15 of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. The king says there to all the sages present before him at the time of his death, "My dear Brahmanas, you should always accept me as your surrendered servant. I have come to the bank of the Ganges just to devote my heart and soul unto the lotus feet of Lord Kṛṣṇa. So please bless me, that Mother Ganges may also be pleased with me. Let the curse of the Brahmana's son fall upon me. I do not mind. I only request that at the last moment of my life, all of you will kindly chant the holy name of Vishnu, so that I may realize his transcendental qualities." This example of Maharaj Parikshit's behavior, his remaining patient even at the last point of his life, his undisturbed condition of mind, is an example of reservation. This is one of the characteristics of a devotee who has developed ecstatic love for Kṛṣṇa. A good example of perseverance would be Arjuna. Arjuna was harassed and attacked by his cousin brothers, the Kauravas, the 100 sons of Dhritarashtra. They gave him no peace, him and his brothers, for basically for 100 years. Talk about a family feud. This conflict between the Kauravas and the Pandavas, it seems like it just went on and on and on and on. And they would think they just had everything resolved, and then a new calamity would happen. And like that, it was going on and on. But Arjuna and his brothers never gave up. They knew they had the friendship and the support of Lord Kṛṣṇa. They knew that Dharma was on their side, so they persevered. Perseverance means that, well, for example, in my own life, even though all my god brothers tried to discourage me, even though my family cheated me in so many ways, and so many nasty things happened, that I never gave up. There were times when I couldn't make any direct advancement, or it seemed like I couldn't do any nice service. But because I kept the instructions of Srila Prabhupada firmly within my heart, and I resolved that as soon as I get a chance, I'm going to execute them. Therefore, in the long run, by persevering over a long period of time, I was able to be a little successful anyway. Detachment. The senses are always desiring sense enjoyment. But when a devotee develops transcendental love for Kṛṣṇa, his senses are no longer attracted by material desires. This state of mind is called detachment. There is a nice example of this detachment in connection with the character of King Bharata. In the 5th canto, 14th chapter, verse 43 of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, it is stated, "Emperor Bharata was so attracted by the beauty of the lotus feet of Kṛṣṇa that even in his youthful life he gave up all kinds of attachments to family, children, friends, kingdom, etc., as though they were untouchable stool." Just try to imagine. So the devotee, he doesn't feel any attraction to this material sense gratification. Well, for one thing, like I mentioned, he has a source of pleasure, a superior source of pleasure in spiritual life, in his ecstatic love of the Lord. So why should he pursue material pleasure, material sense gratification? And the other thing is, he well knows that the consequences of material sense gratification are material suffering. Why would you do something if you know that in the future you're going to suffer for it? Huh? This is not very intelligent. If you know that, if you hit yourself over the head with a hammer, you're going to suffer. So you don't do that. Huh? Similarly, if you know that if I take or accept this material sense enjoyment, I'm going to suffer in the future. And then you experiment and you prove it to yourself over and over again that, yes, every time I fall down from the regulative principles, I'm miserable. Huh? You do that enough times, eventually will sink in that, oh, maybe I just shouldn't fall down from the regulative principles. But what gives us the ability to remain steady is the realization of transcendental pleasure. That's very important. That's why a devotee is not only not attracted to sense enjoyment, he's actually kind of disgusted by it. You know? It's just like if you, what's a good example? If you're into really good music, like classical music or, really fine jazz or Indian music or something like that, and then you hear some of this rap music or Britney Spears or something like that, you just go, ew. Your ears automatically just like, it grates on your ears. It's just like, ooh, ah. You reject it automatically. If you have developed a higher taste, see, a finer appreciation for a better quality, better aesthetic. So it's like that with spiritual pleasure. Once you've tasted this spiritual pleasure, you never want to go back to material pleasure. It's like, what's the use? What's the point? It's not at all attractive. It's ugly. It's crass. It's gross. It's ew. So a devotee feels like that, detached. Emperor Bharata provides a typical example of detachment. He had everything enjoyable in the material world, but he left it. This means that detachment does not mean artificially keeping oneself aloof and apart from the allurements of attachment. That's a very important point. Even in the presence of such allurements, if one can remain unattracted by material attachments, he is called detached. See, in the neophyte stage, the devotee tries to use willpower. I'm not going to touch that chocolate. I'm not going to drink that Coca-Cola. I'm not going to take that cigarette or whatever it is that we're attached to. Sex life is usually the main one. And it takes a willpower, and he keeps falling down and falling down again and again. And this is because he has not developed transcendental pleasure. See, as soon as that happens, then it's easy to give these things up. Of course, in the beginning, a neophyte devotee must try to keep himself apart from all kinds of alluring attachments. But the real position of a mature devotee is that even in the presence of all allurements, he is not at all attracted. That is the actual criterion of detachment. One time, Srila Prabhupada said, I could be in a room full of naked women and I would not be attracted. He said, that's the difference between me and you. He was talking to his sannyasi disciples. That you are forcibly controlling the senses. But my senses just, they don't have any attraction to these things. What's the attraction? See? If a devotee sees a naked woman, he thinks, oh, I should hook her up with Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇa can satisfy her. I can't satisfy her. Pridelessness. When a devotee, in spite of possessing all the qualities of pure realization, is not proud of his position, he is called prideless. In the Padma Purana, it is stated that King Bhagirath was the emperor above all other kings. Yet, he developed such ecstatic love for Kṛṣṇa that he became a mendicant and went out begging even to the homes of his political enemies and untouchables. He was so humble that he respectfully bowed down before them. There are many similar instances in the history of India. Even very recently, about 200 years ago or less, one big landlord known as Lal Babu, a Calcutta landholder, became a Vaishnava and lived in Vrindavan. He was also begging from door to door, even at the homes of his political enemies. Begging involves being ready to be insulted by persons to whose home one has come. That is natural, but one has to tolerate such insults for the sake of Kṛṣṇa. The devotees of Kṛṣṇa can accept any position in the service of Kṛṣṇa. So we're not attached to the position, we're not attached to honor, prestige. These are all